Hello everyone. In this video, we'll provide the training course for AWS certificate on Generative AI developer, where in this video we'll focus on Amazon Q services supporting generative AI applications. We'll start with Amazon Q developer. It's an AI coding assistant tool. Think like GitHub Copilot, but it's AWS native. It generates code, explains code, debug issues, and helps with AWS specific tasks. It's integrated into IDEs like Visual Studio Code or JetBrains or Visual Studio and the AWS console also. Amazon Q developer features are code generation, code explanation, and AWS service integration. You can ask it to generate a Lambda function code, explain what a block of code does, or help you write cloud formation templates for automation infrastructure actually. It understands AWS services and can suggest appropriate configurations. Q Developer includes security scanning. It analyzes your code for vulnerabilities and suggests fixes. This runs automatically as you write code, catching issues like SQL injection, hard-coded credentials, or insecure configurations before they make it into production. This is very important feature actually. For infrastructure as a code, Q developer understands cloud formation, CDK, and Terraform. You can ask it to generate a VPC configuration, create ECS cluster, or set up CI/CD pipeline. It knows the AWS will architected framework and it will suggest the best practice for you. The CLI integration is quite useful. You can use natural language to run AWS CLI commands like show me my running ECS EC2 instances. Get translated to the appropriate CLI command. It also helps with troubleshooting by analyzing error messages and suggesting fixes for it. Actually, Q Developer has access to your code base context. It can see the files you are working with and make suggestions that fit your existing pattern. If you are if you are using a particular library or framework, it will generate code that matches your style also. Next, we'll talk about Amazon Q Business. Q Business is for building generative AI applications on top of your enterprise data. It is essentially a managed RAG platform with a chat interface. You connect it to your data sources like S3, SharePoint, Salesforce, Confluence, ServiceNow, and it builds a searchable knowledge base for you. The architecture includes data connectors, vector store, a chat interface. Actually, data connectors pull content from your data sources, chunk it, create embeddings, and store them in a managed vector database. Users ask questions through the chat interface, and the Q business retrieves the relevant content and generates the answer for the end users. Also, for Q business, access control is built in. Q business respects the permissions from your source systems. If a user doesn't have access to a document in SharePoint, they will not see the content definitely in Q business response. This is quite important for enterprise deployment where different users should see different data with different roles. The process for connecting data sources is straightforward. For S3, you create a data source in Q Business Console, specify your IAM role, and point it to your bucket location. You can also filter to include or exclude files based on patterns. file types or passes, and configure sync schedules daily or hourly or monthly. Here we'll provide an example for connecting QBusiness to S3 data source. The access control uses SEL configuration files stored in your bucket. You create a JSON file that defines permissions for different S3 prefixes, specifying allow or deny access for users or group. For example, you can specify key prefix for finance, for SEL entries, you can allow for finance team or deny for contractors so that they can deny access to finance team files. Any prefixes not mentioned in the ACL file default to allowing all user access, so you only configure restrictions where needed. When QBusiness references a document, users get a clickable link to the original source. This is useful for verification and context. The same pattern applies to other data sources like SharePoint or Salesforce. QBusiness provides connectors with built-in permissions mapping, so you are not recreating your entire access structure from scratch. You can also customize the behavior with plugins. Plugins let QBusiness take actions beyond just answering questions, like plugins for creating tickets, updating records, calling external APIs. This is similar to Bedrock Agent Core, but more focused on business applications. QBusiness include conversation memory also. It maintains the context across multiple turns in a conversation, so users can ask follow-up questions without repeating the context again. The conversation history is stored securely and can be used to improve response over time. Web experiences are also provided out of the box. You get a hosted chat interface that you can customize with your own branding. For more control, you can use the QBusiness APIs to build your own interface also. Next, we'll talk about QBusiness apps. QBusiness apps are pre-built applications that, that use QBusiness under the hood rather than building a custom QBusiness deployment. You can deploy a predefined app for a specific use case. The available apps include things like HR Assistant, IT Help Desk bots, sales enablement tools. Each app comes with pre-configured data connectors, prompts, and workflows tailored to that use cases. QBusiness apps, you can still connect to your own data sources, but the app handles the configuration. For example, HR Assistant app knows to look for employee handbooks, benefits information, policy documents. It is pre-configured with prompts that make sense for HR queries. QBusiness apps are faster to deploy than building a custom QBusiness solution, but with less flexibility. If use case matches one of the available apps, so they are good starting point for you. If you need custom behavior, you would use QBusiness directly instead of the apps. So, in brief, let's focus how or where these AWS services overlap. These services are quite different, but here is where they might be confused. A QDeveloper versus QBusiness. QDeveloper is for writing the code, but QBusiness is for searching enterprise data. If the question about developer productivity or AWS service usage, it's a QDeveloper task. But if it's about employee finding information, it's a QBusiness. QBusiness apps versus QBusiness. QBusiness apps are pre-built applications using the QBusiness itself. And the Q business is a platform underneath. If you have a use case that matches any available apps, then use the Q business applications directly. If you need custom behaviors, then you can customize the Q business directly. What about the difference between Q business and the Bedrock knowledge bases? Both implement RAG, but Q business is a complete application. It has data connectors, chat interface, access control. Bedrock knowledge base is a component you use to build your own application. Q business is higher level and easier to deploy. Knowledge bases give you more control to customize. Let's differentiate between Q developer and Amazon Bedrock. Q developer is specifically for coding tasks and AWS service usage. Amazon Bedrock is a general purpose fusion model platform. Use Q developer in your IDE for coding help and Bedrock APIs in your application for generative AI features. So let's brief with some notes on this AWS services. Actually, Q developer quite a bit. It's useful for generating boilerplate code and explaining AWS service configuration. Q business has access control integration. It's impressive actually. It actually works properly, which is not something expected for me. Q business apps seems like a good way to start with, but I suspect most organizations will outgrow them and move to custom Q business deployment once they understand the requirements better. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you like the video content. And if you have any questions, you can comment on this video. And please subscribe to my channel soon so that you can follow up the next videos we publish on the channel. Thank you again.